Welcome in to Lock and Live College Football Week 3 edition with Uncle Phil and Smooth Andy. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Smooth Andy, Uncle Phil, looking forward to today. How are you guys doing?
Good. I'm ready to roll. I excited about Saturday again. I couldn't wait for the weekend to get here. Smooth Andy, what about you?
Same here. Can't wait to spend the day watching football.
Absolutely. Well, before we jump into the picks, we'll do a quick recap of last week. Uncle Phil, 1-1 with your public plays, but the notebook went 8-1 in college. So, I mean, can't do much better than that. And Smooth Andy with a pretty big week again. So, what are you guys seeing for college that's leading to your success? Because so far it's been, just the train's been rolling.
What's been working for you, Smooth Andy?
The spreadsheet. I mean, that's simply put, that's it. Last week, I think I got a little bit lucky. The more data I can add, the more I can see the teams. I think the sharper things get. So I stuck my neck out a little bit last week and went 5-2 anyway. So no complaints on that. I was unsure of how strong I felt about them, but they worked out pretty well. So far.
All right. How many weeks of your internet connection's a little weak, but how many weeks of data till you get to you like, okay, I really trust the data I'm getting?
I'd say a couple of weeks into when teams are playing conference games is probably about right.
Yep.
Everybody's all these cupcakes and all this, intra-conference or inter-conference. I'm sorry, inter-conference play. It can be a little misleading, And I think once people start playing teams that they know well and that know them, it gets a little bit more solidified.
Yep, absolutely. For me, look, I mean, this is a hot start for me. I mean, I expect this, but I'm always still surprised when I do this well. I mean, 8-1 last week was unbelievable. For me, when I went 8-1 though, and I lost one of my public plays, especially because I know that so many guys out there, they're parlaying these picks or the two picks that I do. So, man, that was you always beat yourself up for the losses. And even though I went 8-1, I was probably the least happy when I went to bed last week that I've been, just because, I lost that one. But hopefully we can turn it around this week. That's certainly what I'm trying to do. I mean, not turn around at 8-1, but turn around and hit both my public plays.
Let's do even better, right? Let's hit the public plays and let's go undefeated in the notebook. Let's do it. So, where are we starting on this mission? Where are we heading first, Uncle Phil?
Yeah, for me, I think most guys here know that I'm, if you followed me for a while, I'm from Arkansas. I went to school at Arkansas, and I just love the state of Arkansas. And today, you guys, after hearing my picks, you're either going to love the state of Arkansas or you're going to hate it, because that's where I'm going. First place I'm going is I'm going to the Big House. I'm going to watch Arkansas State take on Michigan. I don't think Michigan can score, and I think Arkansas State is feisty. A lot of people don't know anything about them, but they're 2-0. I don't know if this is a Northern Illinois thing this week, but wouldn't be surprised at all if this game's 6 points in the fourth quarter for Michigan. And this is also what in the business we like to call a big old fat sandwich game for Michigan. Michigan obviously played Texas this week. Last week, they play USC next week. Lowly Arkansas State rolls in there, and I'm taking Arkansas State plus 22.5 in this. It's just way too many points for a team that doesn't seem to be able to score, and Arkansas State, who seems like they can. I think people just the public hasn't come to grips with Michigan is not that good this year, and I think there's value here on that one for a lot of reasons. The next one I like is I'm going back to Arkansas, where Arkansas is taking on UAB. UAB was favored by 11 points last week, and they got beat 32-6. Trent Dilfer is a new coach at UAB. I like Trent a lot, especially as an analyst, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. He had his first losing season last year. That's the first losing season UAB's had in a decade. It was his first year, so not off to a great start. And looking at his schedule this year, doesn't look much better. I mean, it looks like to be another losing season for Trent. The next 5 games for UAB are just a mess. Arkansas is favored by 23.5 points. This is actually – Arkansas had technically a home game, its first game, but they played it in Little Rock, which is not their on-campus facility. And then, of course, last week they played on the road at Oklahoma State. You know, they just beat Oklahoma State every which way except on the scoreboard. It's unfortunate they didn't win. I saw some statistic where, you know, teams that had dominated a game were like Arkansas did last week and had lost. Arkansas, out of 354 games, Arkansas was the only team that had lost, and the average score is 53-15. So Arkansas is much better this year. Some coaching mismanagement there during the game that I think cost them. But what I do like is this is Arkansas's really their first home game back at their stadium in front of their students, back in Fayetteville. And you know how each team that came out and played a weaker team just dominated in week 1 and week 2 when they were playing at home. Well, essentially, that's what Arkansas's game is today. They're playing in their stadium for the very first time, and this should be a game where I think that they owe the fans in Arkansas to have a good game, and I think they will. So I'm taking Arkansas minus 23.5 to dominate UAB.
We love it. Well, we're rooting for Arkansas, state of Arkansas today. Should be fun to watch those games, but looking forward to it. Smooth Andy, where are you heading this week?
Thank you, Matt. I got starting off with Wake Forest plus 21.5 against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is an extremely popular favorite this week. You're getting all the bets from everybody. It's basically very one-sided. I do like Wake as the way that their mesh offense always gives people fits. So I kind of like that fit. That said, Ole Miss could put up a ton of points, but we'll see. I'm going to trust my numbers on this one. The next one is UTSA plus 36. They're playing Texas. Texas is obviously has looked great so far, and I just think that everybody's kind of going to feel like they can plus game and beat UTSA. And I remember a couple years ago I heard Chris the Bear Falika talk about this game, and he was dead right on it. They play each other every year. He said, you know, these UTSA players, they all went to high school with all the kids playing at Texas and A&M and everywhere else in the state. They got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They didn't get recruited by those guys. So when they play them, they bring their A game. This is them wanting to show their bigger brother that they can hang in with them. So, and it worked out well. It has the last couple years, I think. I'm going to go to that well again. Plus my numbers are saying that I should. And finally, I've got Missouri minus 14.5 against Boston College. Boston College is a very popular dog, so I like to fade those. And Boston College obviously had a very notorious win against FSU, but I think FSU is trash this year. We've seen Georgia Tech also beat FSU, and then they went out and got beat last week. So I just think it's more about FSU not being good than it is about Boston College being significantly better. I think Missouri is one of those teams that's always really good and just gets no attention from people because in the SEC they just don't look like the big bad team that so many of the other ones are. So give me Missouri minus 14.5 for my third play. And that's it.
Love it. Well, I hope that's 5-0 across the board. Looking forward to it. Well, let's get to some questions. As a reminder, just comment wherever you're watching the stream, and we'll get to your questions. First on the line, we have Drax wants to know about Wisconsin versus Alabama. You guys have any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I definitely do. Smooth Andy, what about you, man? What are your thoughts on the game? What are the numbers telling you?
Yeah, this one's a little bit lower. I'm going to put the flags up on my Twitter today for the first time because I finally got some data, so I'm able to show how strongly I feel about something. This one's on my card. It's got 2 flags, which is the lowest number of flags that would cause me to provoke a bet. I've got Wisconsin plus 16 in that game. I don't feel comfortable at all about that. but Alabama's not looking too great so far, and Wisconsin hasn't looked very good so far either. So that's what worries me most. But hopefully, with Alabama coming to town, Wisconsin's going to bring, get up for this game. They got them at home. I think I heard that this is the first time in like 20 or 30 years or something that Alabama's crossed the Mason-Dixon line to play a road game. So unusual for Alabama. I don't think that factors into the game at all, but just an interesting little tidbit. But yeah, give me Wisconsin today.
Yeah, no, I'll take the other side of that one, which I'm sure you can appreciate. You and I were in lockstep last week, took USF versus Alabama last week, both won in cash on that pretty easily. Kind of the score was very misleading at the end of the game. I like, everybody's starting to fade Alabama a little bit. Alabama gets their big offensive tackle, Caden Proctor, back this week, 6'7", 365 pounds. He was out of high school. He was the number one offensive lineman in the country. He's had a little bit of a shoulder issue. He's massive. I think that offense gets back on track today. And I think they just roll through Wisconsin, especially it's a noon game. Jump around fans. If it were later in the night, I think Camp Randall may be a little closer, but I think a noon game, I think Alabama goes up there and handles business, and I think they blow Wisconsin out. I think it's just I think Alabama's defense may give up some points, but anything under 20, I like Alabama. They didn't make my notebook, but they were, I kind of start off with a big board of what I want to play, and I didn't like this week at all going into it, and then I ended up having, slicing it down from about 19 or 20 plays that I really like. And Alabama was on that big board that I had where I sliced it down to 9 plays that I had on the notebook. And I think Alabama, I think they roll today. I think that probably the total over 49, I think it's 49 now. I like that too, probably. But I think this is a big day for Alabama. I think this is a get right on board just because they've had problems in the offensive line. I think Caden Proctor solves that offensive line issue, and I think Alabama looks like Alabama today.
So sorry about that, Drax. Sounds like we just did nothing but confuse you. We haven't provided any clarity unless you want to take one of us.
Yeah.
Just intriguing. Alabama, Wisconsin. It's kind of a in regular season matchup. Next on the line, we got Chase on Twitter. He wants to know about Tennessee by 31.5 first half, ?
Look, man, I usually let Smooth Andy go in front of me on this one, but I love that pick. And I'm so jealous I didn't think of it because, I think, Nico's probably going to play the first half, and I think Tennessee just crushes them. I think that's such a smart play. I like that. What do you think about that one, Smooth?
I'm actually on Kent State for the game. Don't feel good about it at all. I think I went against Tennessee a week or two ago, and they just, I think it was against NC State, and they just absolutely annihilated NC State. Again, a lot of the stuff I'm doing is going to make me and you uncomfortable because it's not easy to take Kent State with any spread. They're getting 49.5, but this is just a play of, it's never as easy as just saying, oh, Tennessee will kill them and then clicking bet, So what I'm seeing is a lot of people placing bets on Tennessee. They're a very popular team this week for, obvious reasons, but I'm going to wonder whether they're going to come in with their A game today, seeing Kent State on the other side of the field when they show up. So we'll see, and hopefully we can both win our bets. If you can get Tennessee and clear the first half, and then somehow Kent State will whittle it back down a little bit. But we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting bet. I like the play on it. I like your play in the second half because I feel like Tennessee, in my journal that I keep, I feel like that. Week 3 is always the week where you don't want to play the high spreads because teams tend not to cover those because they're getting into their conference schedule the following week. So, hey, they proved a point the first 2 weeks. Why prove it again? And they kind of pull back. You kind of played that with Texas. I see you played that with Texas, going with UTSA. I see you played that again with Kent State. I don't have the cojones to do that. I think both those teams – could obviously name their score. Will they? I don't know. I know Steve Sarkisian got this week. He made his team watch the the film of the tape of Notre Dame, Northern Illinois, because he's like, we're not doing that. We've got too much at stake this year. We're not falling trap to what happened in Notre Dame. We're not doing that. So I feel like Texas is going to be focused this week. Do I have enough guts to bet them for the entire game? I had them in my big board. I took them off. I didn't have enough just because of the journal. And I just like you follow your tried and true methods. I try to follow my journal, and journal says don't take big spreads this week because teams tend to pull back in preparation for conference. But
one other little tidbit.
Yep.
Just I'm sorry to interrupt. I thought you were
No.
just trailing off. Tennessee has Oklahoma next week too.
Yeah.
So this is a sandwich spot for them, basically. I mean,
no question about it. Great point. I think that whoever that poster was, that talked about taking Tennessee 31.5. I think that's an interesting thing. I think I'm going to start looking at that, looking at Texas and Tennessee, maybe the teams that have big spreads. You don't take the full game big spreads for the entire game on week 3, but maybe you look at taking first half points. So I'm going to look into that. So I appreciate the poster bringing that up. I think that's a smart play.
Yeah, thanks, Chase. Great question. I will take 2 more, maybe. N. Adams, thoughts on TCU? It's a blackout night game in Fort Worth. Can the Frogs stop their run game?
Smooth Andy, do you have any thoughts about that at all?
Yeah, I've got TCU in that game. It popped up. I'm thinking there was some reverse line movement, and there was something about an unpopular favorite that popped up on that one. They're playing Central Florida, and and that's exactly what it was. Just a couple flags popped up for me, and when it's 2 flags or more, that's what it is, unless I have something contradicting it somewhere else, and I didn't. So TCU is on my card today, -2, or I think it's 2 or 2.5.
Yeah, to me, it really comes down to can TCU contain UCF running back star? I think it's RJ Harvey, I believe his name is, and it's pretty good. I think it's an interesting game. It was a stay away game for me and didn't make my board just because I need to watch more of both teams, and I just really haven't. And if I don't have an informed opinion, I don't play it. I don't take anybody else's word for it, and I don't play anything where I haven't watched both teams.
Good stuff. Well, before we wrap up, I actually have a question on the game. Would love to get some feedback. Georgia, Kentucky. It feels kind of like a trap line at 22.5, even though the eye test says take Georgia. Where do you guys stand on that one?
Smooth Andy, you're smiling. You've got an opinion.
I've got Kentucky. I don't feel great about it, but they do give Georgia a good game. I think Kentucky. I was on South Carolina. I think it was last week they played Kentucky, and they pulled the outright upset. Now I'm going on Kentucky because I think everybody thinks Kentucky stinks, and yes, Georgia's very, very good, but Kentucky always gives them fits. And again, it's not a comfortable thing because you could look up and it could be 50 to 10 in the middle of the fourth quarter and you're just sunk. But I'm going to bet that Kentucky brings their A game to take on Georgia today, like they do every year, it seems like. And I like the fact that they got beat by South Carolina because that just makes them undervalued a little bit. Could be that they genuinely stink, and we'll find that out. But that's what happens when you're in week 3. You haven't quite solidified your beliefs on teams. But I'm just going to be playing Kentucky for the flags that they set off, and then for the fact that they're very unpopular. Georgia's getting all the bets in every book that I've seen. So yeah, I like this kind of play. It's uncomfortable, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, Kentucky's offense looked really old school last week. I think Georgia should roll in this game. I would take a feisty Kentucky team had they impressed me last week against South Carolina, but they just absolutely laid an egg at home against South Carolina, and who in the initial overreaction week 1 games, South Carolina was. I saw where people had South Carolina ranked as the worst team in the SEC, and of course, just went in there and just smoked Kentucky last week. And like I said, do not trust Kentucky to be feisty today. I didn't even have them on the board. I'll be interested in watching the game, but really no opinion. I mean, it would be Georgia or nothing for me, because I think Georgia could sleepwalk and score and beat Kentucky by 30 points easy in this game. I mean, Georgia's defense, it's not like Kentucky's offense is going to be that hard to handle anyway, and Georgia's defense is stellar, and I think Georgia probably shuts them out. This game probably goes under the total just because I think it's Georgia scores, and they'll probably be lackluster, and I don't even know if Kentucky can even score this game. So we'll see. I hope, since I'm not playing it, I hope Kentucky hits for you smooth. I just that one just makes me nauseous for you. Makes my stomach hurt.
Make me nauseous. Yeah,
They'll make me nauseous. Feels like taking the Panthers in NFL,
which I might be doing tomorrow.
Right?
Well, actually, we got one more question that just came in, and I think we should go to it. Dalton said sold out backyard brawl today at 3:30, Pitt or West Virginia.
I slight lean to Pitt, but I tend my better bet on that one would be take the over.
Yeah, I've got nothing myself on that one. That one didn't.
I think the over's like 47 to 48 points on that one. It's been a while since I've looked at it or looked at it earlier in the week, and I think probably the over in that one's probably a good bet, but it should be a wildly entertaining game. I think.
It's way above that. It's 62.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. No defense in that game, apparently.
Yeah. Spread's 1.5, though, right?
Pardon?
Spread is 1.5. Is that right?
Yeah. West Virginia -1.5 on the road.
Yeah. I mean, look, we saw West Virginia in the first game probably had a good chance of beating Penn State, except they kept turning the ball over. It's like, it looked like a rain game, where the ball just kept slipping out of their hands. It was unbelievable. At that point, it was a great opportunity to bet against Penn State the following week, which a lot of people did. A lot of people cashed on that. But James Franklin continues to do less with more, at Penn State. I just can't figure that one out. But anyway, I still would take the over in that game. I think those teams score a lot of points.
Gotcha. Well, any last words before we take off and get ready for the first games on the slate?
Smooth Andy, you?
I want to apologize in advance for what you're going to see when I post these things to Twitter, because some of these are really uncomfortable. We already talked about Kent State, Kentucky, Wake Forest. I've got Oregon this week, and they've been terrible. But again, everybody's on Oregon State. Everybody knows Oregon's been terrible, so I expect them to bounce out of it to benefit from a better point spread because of how bad they've looked so far. But these are uncomfortable bets. But that's par for the course for everything I do anyway. So yeah. So be ready to cringe.
That's what's made you successful, right? You take the bets that other people won't. So
yeah,
it's a tried and true strategy. You've done it for a long time. So good for you. For me, again, my journal says do not take the large spreads this week for the entire game. And again, I think if you did take the first half on those games. Again, great point. Always love learning something new and thinking about things in a different way. The other thing is I think today's a really good day for dogs. In my notebook today, I've got 6 out of my 9 plays are underdogs. I've got 2 under totals are in my play, and the only favorite I've got is the one I mentioned today, and that's Arkansas -23.5. So anyway, guys, as always, thanks for tuning in, and let's have a day and let's roll.